Welcome to Timeless Memories. I'm Sarah. This channel is a special place where we honour remarkable lives that continue to be remembered with love and admiration. Here we reflect on unforgettable figures from film, music, television and culture, celebrating their journey, their impact and the legacy they left behind. Every tribute we share keeps their memory alive and forever meaningful. Elliot Fett Noyes Jr., born on October 18, 1942, was an American animator known for bringing an experimental and hands-on approach to animation that stood out from more conventional styles. He became especially recognized for his creative use of materials like clay and sand, giving his work a textured, almost living quality that helped expand what animation could look and feel like. One of his early standout achievements was the 1964 film Clay, or The Origin of Species, which received an Academy Award nomination and played an important role in establishing clay animation as a respected artistic form. Over the years, he contributed to a number of influential children's television programs, including creating sand-based visual sequences for Pinwheel and educational alphabet animations for Sesame Street, both of which became memorable to young audiences. He also worked with producer Kit Laybourne on projects such as Brain Games, and contributed to shows like Eureka's Castle and Gula Gula Island, helping shape the visual language of children's television. Later in his career, he expanded into documentary work, directing animation segments for films including Under Our Skin and The Most Dangerous Man in America. He co-founded the studio Alligator Planet with Ralph Guggenheim. Born in Amherst, Massachusetts, and educated at the Putney School and Harvard University, he came from an artistic family, as his father was architect Elliot Noyes. 15 years ago this week, the world said goodbye to Elizabeth Taylor, who passed away at the age of 79, leaving behind a legacy that still feels larger than life. She was far more than a classic movie star. She had a rare screen presence that combined beauty, intensity, and emotional honesty in a way that made her unforgettable in every role she took on. From her early breakout in National Velvet, where her natural charm and youthful energy captured audiences, to powerful performances in films like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, she showed an ability to grow and transform with each stage of her career. Her Oscar-winning work in Butterfield 8 revealed a more vulnerable side, while Cleopatra turned her into a symbol of cinematic grandeur and Hollywood spectacle. Yet what made her truly compelling was not just the glamour or awards, but the deeply human qualities she brought to her characters: passion, complexity, and emotional truth. Off-screen, she was equally multifaceted, known for her resilience through personal struggles and her outspoken compassion for humanitarian causes. Even years after her passing, Elizabeth Taylor continues to be remembered not only for the roles she played, but for the lasting emotional impact she left on film history and audiences around the world. Ileana Stana Ionescu was one of Romania's most familiar and respected stage and screen performers, remembered for her warmth, versatility, and long-standing contribution to the arts. Born on the 14th of September 1936 in Brad, Hunedoara, she began her journey in theatre in 1955, marking the start of a career that would span many decades and connect with multiple generations of audiences. Over time, she became known for her ability to move naturally between dramatic and comedic roles, earning admiration for her emotional depth as well as her light, expressive timing. Her performances helped shape Romanian theatre and film culture, making her a trusted and beloved presence on stage and screen. Beyond acting, she also took part in public service, representing Romania's Italian minority in the Chamber of Deputies between 2000 and 2004. In this role, she supported cultural inclusion and worked toward greater recognition of minority communities. Even in her later years, she remained connected to creative work, including voice acting, showing her continued passion for performance. She passed away at the age of 87 after age-related health issues. Her legacy lives on through her extensive artistic body of work and her contributions to cultural and public life in Romania. Jerry Lewis was widely known as one of the most influential entertainers of his era, remembered for shaping modern comedy with a style that blended physical humour, expressive timing, and emotional depth. Over a long career in film and television, he became especially recognised for his performances in works like The Nutty Professor, where he showcased not only comedic talent but also versatility as an actor and filmmaker. His on-screen presence brought energy and humour to audiences across generations, often at times when light-hearted entertainment was deeply needed. Beyond his work in entertainment, Lewis devoted a major part of his life to humanitarian efforts, particularly his long association with muscular dystrophy fundraising initiatives. Through decades of telethons and public campaigns, he helped raise substantial funds for medical research and support services, contributing significantly to awareness and care for those affected by the condition. While his public image was strongly tied to comedy, those who followed his career also recognised his commitment to charity and advocacy. He passed away at the age of 91, leaving behind a legacy that combined entertainment, philanthropy, and a lasting impact on both popular culture and humanitarian work. Jill Jacobson was an American actress and comedian, known for her energetic presence and versatile work across television, film, stage, and stand-up comedy. She was born on May 21, 1954, in Beaumont, Texas, and grew up between Beaumont and Dallas in a close family environment that supported her creative interests. From an early age, she showed an interest in performance and storytelling, which later developed into a professional career in entertainment. She studied at the University of Texas at Austin, where she earned a degree in radio, television, and film performance. This formal training helped her build a strong foundation in acting and media, preparing her for work in Hollywood. After moving to Los Angeles, she began steadily working in television and film, gradually becoming a recognizable supporting actress. Jacobson became known for appearing in popular television series such as Falcon Crest and Star Trek: The Next Generation. Her performances were often marked by a natural sense of humour and strong screen presence, which helped her stand out in ensemble casts. Alongside acting, she also explored stand-up comedy, showing her range as a performer beyond scripted roles. She later continued working across different areas of entertainment, maintaining a long and varied career. Reports about her passing at age 70 following an illness related to esophageal cancer have been shared in public tributes, reflecting on her professional contributions and the many roles she played over the years. Al Pacino is one of the defining actors of modern cinema, a figure whose presence reshaped what intensity on screen could look like. Born in 1940 in East Harlem and raised in the South Bronx, his story is often told like myth, but the foundation is simple: scarcity, instability, and an early sense of abandonment. His father left when he was a toddler, and he was raised primarily by his mother and grandparents in difficult financial conditions. That early emotional fracture would become the psychological undercurrent of much of his work. Men shaped by loss, power, and internal contradiction. He didn't arrive in Hollywood as a polished star. He arrived as a stage actor forged in New York theatre, carrying hunger more literal than metaphorical. The world would later recognise him as Michael Corleone, Tony Montana, and Frank Serpico. But before that, he was a young man trying to stay afloat, acting not as ambition, but as survival. His career became a study in transformation, where identity itself was something he could enter and leave only through enormous emotional cost. Childhood shaped by absence and survival. The early life of Al Pacino was defined less by what he had and more by what he lacked. Growing up in the South Bronx meant being surrounded by economic hardship, crowded living conditions, and limited opportunity. The absence of his father left a quiet but lasting imprint, not as a dramatic single moment, but as a permanent gap in his sense of stability. His mother worked to support him, but life was precarious, and much of his childhood was spent under the care of grandparent. School offered little direction. He was not a model student, and traditional academic paths did not hold his attention. Instead, he drifted toward performance, drawn to the idea of becoming someone else as a way of understanding himself. Like many artists shaped by difficult environments, he did not initially see acting as a career. It was closer to an outlet, a release from the constraints of his surroundings. The Bronx of his youth was not romantic. It was dense, unpredictable, and often harsh. But it became, in his own reflections, a kind of training ground, not for performance technique, but for emotional observation. That environment would later resurface in every role that required intensity grounded in lived experience. The struggle to become an actor. Before fame, Al Pacino spent years moving through New York's theatre ecosystem, studying at acting studios and working low-paying jobs to survive. He trained at institutions like HB Studio and later the Actors Studio, where method acting principles shaped his craft. The emphasis was not on imitation, but emotional truth, drawing from personal memory to fuel performance. This approach came naturally to him, but it also carried psychological weight. He was not simply portraying emotion, he was revisiting it. During this period, he often lived precariously, sometimes struggling to afford basic necessities. Acting was not yet a profession that sustained him financially, and rejection was constant. Casting directors frequently overlooked him because he did not fit conventional leading man expectations of the time. Still, theatre became his refuge. On stage, he found recognition long before cinema acknowledged him. Early performances earned critical attention, slowly building a reputation that contrasted sharply with his lack of commercial success. These years formed the foundation of his discipline, shaping a working method that would later define his most iconic roles: immersion, intensity, and emotional risk. The breakthrough that changed everything. The turning point for Al Pacino came with his casting as Michael Corleone in The Godfather, 1972. At the time, the studio did not see him as the obvious choice. He was relatively unknown in film, and executives preferred more established actors. But director Francis Ford Coppola insisted on him, seeing something restrained and psychologically complex that others overlooked. The role required subtlety rather than outward expression. Michael Corleone begins as detached and evolves into something far colder and more controlled. Pacino's performance became a masterclass in internal transformation. Small shifts in expression carrying enormous narrative weight. The film became a cultural milestone, and his performance permanently altered his career trajectory. Overnight, he went from stage actor to global figure. Yet the transition was not emotionally simple. Fame brought attention, pressure, and a loss of anonymity that he later described as disorienting. Despite the acclaim, he did not immediately win major awards for the role, something that became a recurring pattern in his early career. Recognition was consistent but delayed. The performance itself, however, became one of the defining pillars of modern cinema. The intensity of the 1970s roles following The Godfather, Al Pacino entered one of the most artistically intense phases of his career. Films like Serpico, 1973, and Dog Day Afternoon, 1975, demonstrated his commitment to roles that demanded emotional and physical immersion. In Serpico, he portrayed a real-life police officer exposing corruption, and in Dog Day Afternoon, a desperate man trapped in a bank robbery gone wrong. These performances were marked by psychological realism. He often worked closely with directors who allowed improvisation and emotional exploration. The result was a series of films that felt immediate and unpredictable. However, the same intensity that made his performances powerful also made his working process demanding. During this era, he was repeatedly nominated for major awards but often did not win, reinforcing a narrative of near recognition. Personally, the pressure of fame combined with immersion in difficult roles contributed to emotional strain and withdrawal from aspects of public life. By the end of the decade, he was already regarded as one of the most important actors of his generation, even without a major award win to match his reputation. Scarface and cultural reinvention. In 1983, Al Pacino starred in Scarface, directed by Brian De Palma. The film, initially controversial and critically divisive, presented him as Tony Montana, a Cuban immigrant who rises to power in the criminal underworld of Miami. The role demanded explosive energy, aggression, and emotional volatility. At release, the film received mixed reviews and was criticized for its violence and excess. However, over time it evolved into a cultural phenomenon. Home video distribution and later pop culture references transformed Tony Montana into an iconic figure representing ambition, excess, and self-destruction. Pacino's performance became central to that legacy. The character's rise and fall mirrored broader themes about power and identity in American cinema. While the film did not initially earn major awards recognition, its long-term influence far exceeded its early reception. For Pacino himself, the role reinforced his reputation for fully inhabiting characters at emotional extremes. It also marked a shift toward a more complex public image, no longer just a dramatic actor, but a symbol of intensity in cinema. Recognition and the long wait for an Oscar. Despite decades of acclaimed performances, Al Pacino did not win an Academy Award until 1993, when he received Best Actor for Scent of a Woman. In that film, he played a blind, retired military officer whose bitterness and humour mask deep vulnerability. The performance was theatrical, commanding, and emotionally charged. It included the now famous courtroom speech and tango sequence, both of which became cultural touchpoints. When he finally received the award, it marked the culmination of years of nominations without victory. However, the win carried complexity. Some critics and Pacino himself later reflected on the idea that awards do not necessarily define artistic peak. By that point, many of his earlier performances were already considered more influential than the role that won him the Oscar. The moment symbolized recognition, but not completion. His career had long since transcended awards logic, existing instead in the legacy of performances that shaped acting styles across generations. Fatherhood and personal reflection. Later in life, Al Pacino became a father, including children from multiple relationships. Fatherhood introduced a different kind of responsibility compared to acting, one that could not be approached through immersion or performance technique. He has spoken in interviews about the challenges of balancing career intensity with family presence. Like many actors deeply committed to their craft, he often spent long periods working on films or stage projects, which limited consistency in personal life. The arrival of his children in later years brought reflection on time, legacy, and emotional continuity. Rather than transforming his identity, fatherhood added complexity to it, another role that could not be fully controlled or rehearsed. His relationships, like his career, reflect both connection and distance, shaped by the demands of a life spent frequently in artistic absorption. Near misses, survival, and mortality. In recent years, Al Pacino has experienced health scares and the natural vulnerabilities of aging, including during the global COVID-19 pandemic. However, reports of clinical death or dramatic near-death experiences circulating online are not confirmed facts and should be treated cautiously. What is consistent is that he continues to work into his later years, participating in films and theatre while reflecting on longevity, memory, and artistic purpose. At his age, survival itself becomes part of the narrative, less about dramatic events and more about endurance. His perspective on life has become more reflective over time, often focusing on gratitude for longevity in a profession that rarely offers it. The idea of legacy has shifted from performance achievement to continuity, what remains after decades of work. Legacy in modern cinema and influence on acting. The long career of Al Pacino extends far beyond his individual performances. It reshaped how modern actors approach psychological realism on screen. His work helped popularize a style of acting that prioritizes internal emotional logic over external theatricality. In earlier eras of cinema, performances were often more controlled and visually structured, but Pacino's emergence in the 1970s helped shift expectations toward emotional volatility and lived-in authenticity. Actors who followed him frequently cited his performances in The Godfather, Serpico, and Dog Day Afternoon as reference points for character immersion. The idea that an actor could carry both vulnerability and intensity within the same moment became more widely accepted, partly because of his influence. His collaboration with directors like Francis Ford Coppola and Sidney Lumet also demonstrated how performance could be shaped through trust and extended takes, allowing emotional unpredictability to become part of cinematic language. Over time, his influence extended into global cinema. Method-based approaches became more mainstream, and younger generations of actors studied his choices in pacing, silence, and emotional restraint. Even in roles where he is not the lead focus, his presence often dominates scenes through sheer psychological weight. His legacy is not confined to awards or box office success, but embedded in how acting itself is taught, discussed, and practiced today. Enduring presence and final reflections on craft. In the later stages of his career, Al Pacino has continued to work across film, television, and stage, reflecting a lifelong relationship with performance that has never fully shifted into retirement. Unlike many actors who gradually step away from the industry, he has remained active, driven less by external validation and more by an internal connection to the craft itself. Acting, for him, has often been described as a form of necessity rather than occupation. With age, his performances have taken on a different texture. The explosive intensity of his earlier work has softened into reflection, humour, and controlled gravity. Roles in later films often emphasize legacy, aging, and perspective, allowing him to reinterpret the idea of power from experience rather than ambition. This shift gives his recent work a quieter resonance, as if the performance is now in conversation with his earlier career. In interviews, he has spoken about acting not as something completed, but something ongoing, an evolving dialogue between self and character. The idea of finishing a career does not fit easily within his worldview. Instead, he frames it as continuity, each role another attempt to understand human behaviour through different emotional lenses. What remains consistent is presence. Even in smaller or less celebrated projects, his screen energy is unmistakable. The boy from the Bronx who once used acting as survival has become an enduring figure of cinematic history, still engaged in the same pursuit, turning emotion into form and experience into performance. Conclusion: the weight of a long career. The story of Al Pacino is not a simple arc of suffering to success. It is a long progression of intensity, discipline, and emotional investment in craft. From early struggles in the Bronx to defining roles in cinema history, his life reflects both the cost and power of artistic commitment. He is often described through extremes: genius, intensity, isolation, but the reality is more grounded. A working actor who devoted himself completely to his profession. The characters he portrayed became cultural landmarks, but they were built on years of unseen labour and persistence. What remains most striking is not any single role or award, but the continuity of his presence across decades of cinema. His career demonstrates that longevity in art is not about avoiding struggle, but about sustaining purpose through it.